Hello, Planet Sewers. How are y'all today? It's Mathletee here. Today we are in the franchise mode suit, my tropical Africa. We are doing a sun bear habitat. Sorry the video is late. I usually put it out on Tuesday. I just ran out of time yesterday and needed to go to bed. So my apologies, but here it is. Today will be a little bit different. I did speed up some of the footage here and there, so it's not all real time. Anyway, so I'm struggling a little bit to figure out where I want to put this. I was hoping it would connect, and I'm going to move it anyway, so I probably should have just skipped that, but I didn't realize I moved it until later. I've been working on this habitat for a little while and trying to move it around. So its placement's going to move if you're following along. I'm going to actually put it next to the loony balloons so that the staff can turn in right there. And then I'm just trying to get this where I can look at the Zoopedia and see if it's big enough. And this little area is not big enough, so I decided to go ahead and come out this direction. And just using null barriers for right now to get the size to see if I've made it big enough for the sun bears. And this rendition is. So what I'm going to do is in the middle part, I'm going to have their main land area. And I really wanted to have a swimming area for the sun bears. I don't think the sun bears got the update like the other ones did to be able to deep dive. I haven't seen them do it yet, but I'd have to go back and read. I couldn't remember what bears got that update. And so here I'm just using that curve. So I started with a straight one and then turned the curve on and put it to 20 meters and just let the game make the curve. If it ever doesn't make the curve the way you want, if you hold C, it'll put up a little spinner for you to kind of know that you have that activated, and then you can curve it however you like. Say it's just not curvy enough or it's curving the wrong direction. So I'm a little too close to that null barrier, so I'm just going to scoot this out. I did not want where I'm going to have the water actually be a part of the barrier for the sun bears. It just makes life a little bit easier because I did have in mind that the sun bears are going to be able to crawl over the guests in some form or fashion. And so I decided I would just put a barrier inside of barrier. And since this one has no habitat gate, it doesn't trigger any alarms. It's just to hold water. And the main barrier is on the outside of it. So I will make some adjustments to the side of it. I was just getting the layout for how I wanted this to be. And since they don't dive, I could have left it a little lower, but I put it up so that hopefully they would dive. So I was kind of getting an idea about how high it needed to be, because I'm going to drop down a little bit too, so that way I had some room. So here are our sun bears. So I skipped buying them. There just weren't really great ones available as far as genetics go, but they're happy little sun bears. Right here I was struggling with getting this onto a grid. So it's actually attached to the roof grid, which is its own grid compared to the two square buildings next to it. So that's why it goes inside, which is fine. And then I'm going to add some glass here. Hello, Ruby. Good morning. And that way, guests, if they're sitting here, they can get a chance maybe to see the sun bears. I end up making a little bit of a hard shelter for them off of this building in the end. So guests can stand here. They can sit at that one little table. And I'm thinking about where I want to go from here, and I know that I'm going to go ahead and extend this out, and then that way I can add in a little bit of hard shelter for them over here as well. And I'm going to mirror this to the other side. The reason for that is I'm going to make this a bear area. So I'm going to put in another bear across the way. I'm not sure what bear I'm going to do just yet. Not a polar bear, but I'm going to pick one of the other bears. So it won't be exactly the same. I may actually kind of S-curve it so that it kind of goes the opposite curve direction, because I do want to put in a transport ride at some point by the entrance. So I'm going to do the bears, and then maybe we'll do the transport ride. I'm not sure which one I want to do. My favorite is the gondola. However, the monorail is pretty fun, but it doesn't hold as many people. So we'll see. I'll probably do a gondola because I like gondolas. So I do move these two pieces a little bit later when I decide to move the habitat door. And I decided I'll go ahead and get rid of these two signs here, since I'm going to be blocking them off with habitat gate entrances. And I also need to add a keeper hut and do my work zones for the bears. So once I get the other bear exhibit built, I'm going to include a keeper hut with that bear exhibit, and then go ahead and create a work zone for the bears with 2 keepers, a mechanic, and then I'll probably add in the shops since they're right here. I don't usually do that. I usually keep them separate, but we'll see. When it comes to work zones, I usually do 2 habitats with a keeper each and a small keeper hut, and hopefully they're close together. If they're not, then I just make one work zone for that one habitat, and I keep my vendor areas together. So I'm going to get rid of this that I had placed down off screen because I changed it. I decided not to keep that in the edit of the video. So I'm going to put in this door, and I'm going to move it a couple of times, and then I go for the gate itself. It wouldn't let me grab it from the front, so I'm just trying to get that gate a little more centered. It gets a little too close to the wall right there, so it disconnects. So I'm just trying to nudge it where it just disconnects, and I'm bring it back so that it's a little more evenly spaced in there. And then I think I'm gonna, oh, maybe I didn't. I thought I nudged it one more time. And I really struggled with these paths. I end up undoing this right here and putting in grid paths. So I didn't focus on blowing that up and getting that put back together. So because it took away the entrance for my staff, I went ahead and just nudged the door one more time to get it to auto connect, since it wasn't giving me the option to do it myself. So since that worked, I was like, phew, okay. So I'm going to put my staff path there to keep people out of that little square. And then I'm adding in just to box it off so that guests don't necessarily see the habitat gate. I'm going to take these, I'm going to copy them over. So we have that grass theme kind of going for this little building set. And so I'm going to bring it over here over the walkway, and then I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. So I flipped it around and just added the pieces it was missing. I guess it was a good thing I was missing one. I don't know. I guess I should turn that hole the other direction. There's probably a unneeded one inside. Oh well. Anyway, I'm going to nudge these guys around so they're kind of close to each other in the middle versus kind of having a little negative space there. So I'm going to highlight those and scoot them over, and then do the same, I think, with the other side, just so that they're kind of balanced on top there, and the negative space is on the left and the right. And there we go. Now I'm going to grab all of those. Since I'm in the same group, I think it's going to let me. Yep. I probably could have just exited the group and made my life easier instead of selecting them one by one. But whatever. There's always more than one way sometimes. So I'm going to copy that to this side. And I think that little set is actually not on the same grid as the building across from it. So I do need to kind of adjust some of that. I don't know if I've done it already or if I'll do it later. And I decided I will block off the view of the sun bears from right here. I decided I did not want guests to be able to block that little tiny path right there. The path around the binturongs is kind of an alternative, so that if it's a little full, to go down through it, they can walk around. I still need to go in and edit the fence around the binturong when I do the tour again today. Well, I did the tour, actually. It's not a part of the video this time. I'm sorry. I did the tour like 4 times, and I guess I was backwards on my recording and not recording, and I could have sworn I had the recording on a couple of times, and it's just not there. I don't know where it went. I may need to delete some stuff off my computer. Video files are huge, and they take up a lot of space, so I may need to get them off my main computer and move them onto an external, or just delete them. But anyway, so today at the end of the video, there will not be a walkthrough. There will be some screenshots of what it looks like at the end, just a few. Next week I'll do a little tour of the whole zoo. We'll walk through everything. So sorry about that. Anyway, so I'm just separating this guy out, and that's just to get the different angles, and nudging them so that they meet nice on the front and the back. And then I move it over. If you're actually in the group, then it will keep you on the grid. If you're not in the group, like right here, then you can actually advance move. So I was trying to see if I liked the straight staying in the group, but I did not. So I went back out of the group so that I could advance move this and get a little curve. And then I got that one kind of straight, so I decided I'll just go ahead and we'll go straight out to the path with it. And then I can see that it's not quite straight right here, so I'm going to split that last one, and I'm going to try and get it angled to where it has a better, hopefully it's a parallel, the grid to the street, to the path. That way I can just go straight out with it, and I don't have to worry about if I'm running into the path too much. With these, if you use them as your barriers, the guests will walk through them. So if it covers the path at all, they'll ignore it. Hello, Ruby. Whereas if for animals, they obviously don't. It will contain them. So I decided I'll put a little bit of bamboo, since this is 2 animals from the East Asia pack. We have the binturong right there and these sun bears over there. The reason I'm using these animals is I wasn't sure if I had ever researched them. I know I had put them in a franchise zoo at one point, and I can't remember if I ever did the research on them. So I went ahead and said, well, I'll just put them in. I think I have. I had them in a zoo. I was real excited about that pack. And then that zoo, something happened to it. It got corrupted. I still can't play it. So I started doing sandbox. Anyway, so I just decided I would line this with bamboo. So I'm just kind of turning it to go with the turn, to kind of block that concrete a little bit. But it also kind of goes with the green and concrete roof. So we have, you can still kind of see it. I'm going to move this a little bit out of the way. And there we go. And I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing down this direction. So I'm just going to make sure I have the angle snap on. Spacebar will toggle that on and off if you didn't already know. So I'm just going to drag these down that way, and then I'm going to go ahead and give them a flip so that there's a little variation, so it's not too repetitive. If I wanted, I could have used the smaller one to really get some variation, because I could turn it all different ways, but this was good for me, so I just grabbed that set and brought them over. And then I decided for the sun bears, I'll just go ahead and copy these, and we'll just bring them just to the inside of the habitat so that it kind of does the same thing, kind of hides the barrier. And these are not climbable, so I don't have to worry about the sun bears triggering any kind of escape alerts. So do be mindful when you have animals who can climb. They'll have a tag down at the bottom right. You can see as I select the plant, it tells you Africa, base game, bushes. So those are all things that if you search in the little search bar, that will bring this plant up. But also, if you notice, it does not have climbable. I wish there was a filter for non-climbable plants. There's a filter for climbable, but there's not a tag. I guess I could put a tag if I really felt like it. I could go through, and that would take forever to tag them myself. I'm not going to do that. But you can assign a tag and say, oh, this doesn't have climbable, so it must not be climbable, and you could tag them all and find non-climbable plants that way. But anyway, so I am going to put in a little bit of a water pit right here. So I'm going to grab something that's 2 meters high. That's all I'm looking for. And I put this a little too close to the curb of the path here. I thought I moved it enough out. However, as I start digging down, I can tell it's not going to push down right there. So I'm going to grab that piece again. And I'm going to scoot it out where I see it's making that indentation so that I can get to the bottom of it. I really don't care if it's perfect. It's just I don't want this to be super deep. I just want enough to kind of keep the bears separate from the people. And the noise you just heard is my corgi. He's got one of his, I guess, really heavy chew toys. It's not that heavy, but it's clunky. And he just threw it up against the baseboard. So here we go. I'm going to make sure they have enough room if they get boxed for any reason that they can get out and they're not going to get stuck over there. I made that problem with a couple habitats early on when I was playing. They won't unbox themselves for some reason. They get stuck, and sometimes when I hit unbox, they just stay in the box because there's just not enough room for them to move right by the entrance. So sometimes when the game kind of has a glitch, I think they just box them and send them back over there. I'm not sure why that happens. I haven't watched it long enough to figure out why, but it was a seal habitat that had that problem. I had done it in the franchise mode, South America, where it actually gives you the terraform map. And the way I had built their habitat was a little bit underground for part of it, like their little cave area into the water. And it was just too low, I think, and they'd box. It was annoying. But anyway, so right here, I forgot to turn on the very last option here where it talks about the height mode. The very last option will go through the terrain a little bit easier when you're trying to move the bottom of your barriers. So I had added some terrain with the terrain stamp to hold my water in on that side. And originally I wasn't going to do any terrain along the edge. And I go back, I take the water out, and I do add some. And I actually get rid of all that barrier and put in some rocks. And it turns out super pretty, I think. I like the way this habitat came out. It has a kind of old school, just concrete vibe, but mixed with nature. And I think the two blended pretty well when I got done. So I spun that one too many times. I thought I had got that to the other angle. So I'm moving it, and I can see it's not the angle I want. And so I'm gonna go ahead and spin it. Sometimes I have to get a better angle to see. And then right here, I thought it was up. It's not. So I have to give it one more nudge. And I have it at 30 degrees. And the sun bear was able to get up that incline, and all I wanted here was just a way for them to get into this water feature over there. So I'm gonna get rid of the little top parts. So I'm gonna use, I think, smooth. There we go. Yeah, and we're just gonna smooth the top out. That way it's not too crazy. And then I'm gonna go ahead and smooth that out and get this smooth. And then I'm gonna use flatten the surface to get this little edge here where I accidentally did the flat piece. So hopefully they can navigate that. And they can. I did check. So that's why I put the animals in there a lot of times as I'm building, and I'll hit pause until I have all the barriers, just because nothing's more frustrating than spending a lot of time trying to get all of the terrain and the barriers and all these pieces together, only to put your animal in and they can't reach it or whatever, there's a problem. So I'd rather find out here. So I checked and they could. And so I'm going to move on, and we're going to close off this side here. And I'm not going to hit play just yet. I don't have this fully blocked off, even though they could go across the path. The guests would be upset because there's nothing to keep them separate from the animals. And so I'm going to go ahead and finish off this side of the barrier, and I'm making sure I stay where the barrier, these grid pieces that I'm moving around individually, are just to the inside, so that if the bears get close, it doesn't trigger any kind of escape warnings, because these are, I think, considered dangerous. So if they, if I don't place it just right, they'll cross over. The guests are going to scream. They're going to drop their balloons and everything, and you'll hear them running off in fear that there's a escaped animal. So just painstakingly moving this around and then giving it that spin, and I'm lining up that wall more with the barrier, and then I'm changing my view to make sure that those edges are kind of going together nicely, and that there's not too drastic of a change. And then I'm gonna go ahead and try to get this one flush into the barrier there as I can. And then I decided I was gonna add something to just kind of make it look like those go together, and I was like, well, I'll come back to that. Like I said, I end up just getting rid of that barrier and putting rocks back there. So I'm gonna go ahead and kind of hide this little corner here, and I'm trying to get this rock to cooperate with me without having to advance move it too much. And I decided I like it right there. And then I'm gonna get one more piece off of here. I'm gonna go ahead and use this one where they can't see in. I may go back and change that one glass to one-way glass so that they have, or feel like they have, a little bit of a private space. And one thing I did skip in the editing altogether is I did take a do not feed and a do not disturb sign next to each other, and I sunk them all around this habitat. It was saying that they were stressed, but I didn't want a whole bunch of those signs. I'm not a huge fan of how they look, so I went ahead and just sunk them underneath the path. So they still work. The radius just goes down a little bit, but I don't have to see them. They're not hanging out in everybody's faces all through here. So I could use a billboard and just make a, do not feed, a do not disturb, and have that on the entrance of each side here of this path. Maybe I'll do that. So right here I am using the plaster, since there are not concrete pieces that actually are this size and are freeform. So I'm going to create one little small one as a group, and I'm going to line all that up So I'm going to get close so I can make sure that the edges are nice and pretty. And then I'm going to use this to go around and cover up this little edge, and also try to keep it close to the curb. However, I'm more concerned about the inside edge than I am how close to the curb it goes. This will be the basis for my, I guess, viewing barrier as they go along this side. And I'm going to start speeding stuff here, just so we're not watching the same thing over and over again. And I actually did stop recording at one point, just because I figure once you see it a few times, you get the idea. We're just nudging, scooting it over, and rotating, and trying to get those just to have a nice little lineup. And then I'm going to do the same thing with this here once I get it created. So I'm going to put, I put down a 2 meter, that's a breeze block, and I used the thicker one for the base, and I used the thinner one for this little support right here. And I think it's just 1 meter high. I didn't want it too tall. And then we're gonna bring that to the other edge. And then I used the thin metal beam to go straight through here. And I did start editing out me looking for pieces for time as well. I knew this video was going to be a little bit long based on how much footage there was. Turned out some of the footage was just me forgetting to stop recording, and it was just my desktop. It was really funny. I didn't worry too much about that edge, but I wanted to go ahead and move it because I knew it was going to duplicate and you wouldn't see it with another one next to it. But tonight when I get home, I will blueprint this little fence for you guys if you would like to use it, and put it up on the workshop. So that'll be out many hours from now. I don't think I'll have time this morning. But if the link's in the comments, then it's there. I might get to it this morning. We'll try. Originally I wanted to just move this all as one group, but since I don't have anything on the other side, it wouldn't give me the kind of arrows I wanted. And I'm not a huge fan of moving it around with just move. My mouse is super sensitive and my hands are not steady enough. I know I could change the sensitivity of my mouse, but really the other problem is I have issues with my hands. So I decided to split that off, and I'll go back around and do that one by one. I was trying to save some time, but I really wanted to be able to come straight out. I did not like the arrows the way they were. So we're gonna just move these. I'm gonna give it a little bit of a nudge. I forgot to turn off the angle snap because it wasn't moving. So I hit spacebar to turn it off. And we're gonna just do this over and over and over again. Here I went ahead, since I was there and I could see it, and just brought this right up to it. And then I'm gonna give it a little nudge down later. I should have done it right there to keep it from fighting. They're on the same plane, so sometimes the game doesn't know which one it should be showing. So give it a nudge up and down. It'll stop that weird little wave that people call Z-fighting. Klaus now has Clifford the big red dog snake. Anyway, he's a happy little boy this morning. So we're going to speed this up. Is this the same thing? Scoot it over, give it a little spin to fit the curve of the path. I was really just trying to stay on the edge of the path, and so I came onto this side and I could see I was missing it a little bit. And apparently where I had originally built this, it has that little edge of the brick is kind of just right in line with the path, and it looked kind of like maybe there was dirt underneath it. I really didn't know, but it bothered me. So after I get a few of these, almost all of them done, I decided, let me go back. I'm going to highlight all of them, and I'm going to shift them up just a smidge and then continue. So I hit the straight part where it was easy to move them. I'm also trying to keep them a little off the path, because guess we'll just kind of walk through it and it's a little awkward. But anyway, so we're gonna get down here, and then that last one I'm just gonna bring one little pole over so it has support into the barrier. And then I'm going to slow it back down for just a minute. So I'm just grabbing those little plaster pieces and moving them. That way it'll cover up the grass on the inside or the soil or whatever it is. I'm giving it a nudge because I can see that other one already fighting. So I'll go ahead and do that while I have it now, and I'll fix the other one later. Alrighty, so I'm gonna move a little bit of this rock. I was trying to block the bears from actually being able to get up on that little area, because realistically, if the bears could get up there, they can get over. And so the two rocks on the end really didn't solve the problem. But I decided after putting in the rocks, I thought that they gave it kind of just a nice little look to a little transition. I decided to cover this side up with the rock. I guess I could have done rock walls all the way around, but I like the little concrete and the transition into the nature going on for barriers, so it kind of has both. But I decided right here, after I painstakingly made all that, to cover it up right there. And that way, I guess I should go back maybe and just pull that rock all the way over to the edge and cover that last one. I was more concerned about covering the top, not the bottom, now that I watch it back. And I was plunking one inside. Again, I was trying to keep the bears from being able to get onto that little plaster area that I just built as the barrier between the guests and the water pit. And I don't think it worked. I don't remember. Maybe it did, but I decided even so, most zoos would have, for an animal like this, something to make sure that they can't get up here in case you have just that one super intelligent one. And this is just the aquatic rail, so lining these up gets a little tricky. I like to just get the ends together, and then I'll shift it back and forth for left and right, and that's really all it is. So I'm going to speed that up as well to save some time on the video. It's just bringing this out, and then I just kind of put the ends back together and then give it a little spin, and I'm trying to line it up the best I can with the front of that plaster thing wall that I made. And there was one area where the curve, I really tried. I wanted to use the curved aquatic one, but it was just way too curvy, so I just went with the straight one. I could have, I guess, kept some of that inside and made more of a harsh turn right there, but that's okay. I think it turned out just fine. So we're just going around doing the same thing, matching up those ends, making sure. I don't like to have too much that overlap where it's obvious that they're two different pieces. And then here's where my real struggle began. And I wanted the bears, obviously, to be able to get to the other side. And I wanted the guests to be able to see them if they were walking above them. And I think my ground right here is not level. So I think that part of the problem may be that piece, the breeze brick that I used, may not quite be level. I should have set it down on something that I know is level, because when I got done making this, the advanced move arrows, oh Ruby, are not friendly. They're not in the middle, straight left or right. They end up being a little different, and so I'm not sure why that is, because it looks pretty symmetrical to me, but maybe it's off a little bit. I don't know, but I can't use the grid piece because one, there's not a floor piece like this. Otherwise I would have. And I'm putting all those into a group because I wanted to easily multi-select and not worry about using I. So we're gonna put that into the group, and then I'm gonna go ahead and that way I can grab different pieces and not worry about if they're in the same group or not. They are together, and then I can multi-select if I want. So I was trying to build this around the piece of glass and make a nice little square. And then I'm going to leave it here on the ground and make sure that our sun bears are able to walk on top of it. I usually don't talk this much first thing in the morning. My voice really does not want to work. Anyway, so I'm trying to get this glass to where it just barely sinks into the edges so that hopefully it's not too difficult for our bears. It shouldn't be. They're supposed to be good climbers. So we're going to hit play. We're going to check the traversable area. I saw it reset. It shows that they can still walk there. So success. So I'm going to move this over here. I wanted to give them a little tunnel right here. I'm going to turn off that angle snap. And I'm just kind of lining it up with this over here as best as I can. It won't line up all the way, of course. And you can see right there, my arrows are on the diagonal. Sorry, Ruby gave out a big screech. I had to take that out. Anyways, so that made me a little frustrated because I knew right away I was going to have some problems getting this where I wanted it to be. I wanted this to, north, south, east, west, not into the corners. So anyway, I got that set there, and I go ahead and just free move them. And then I try many different things. Eventually I do go back into the group and just recreate some pieces to get this a little more cooperative. So I'm trying to line this up, and then when I hit move, it drops it back down, which is really annoying. I wish it would just keep the height that I had it at. So I'm trying to give it those nudges to get it to line up, which is so annoying with the way the angle is on this. And even when I toggled it, it was just the opposite. It went into the other corners, so it didn't fix my issue. So you can see I let go of the X and it lost the height. It hit the ground again. So right here I'm trying to just line up, and I'm bringing the height back to where hopefully they're level. And I think I've got it. So now I'm going to scoot it around. I can let go of shift. It'll stay the height I have it. It really would have just been so much easier if that X would have cooperated and been where I needed it to be. So since it looks pretty symmetrical to me, and I don't know what the problem is, I couldn't get it. So yeah, here we go. I'm going in. I'm going to just recreate these sides. So I've grabbed the glass, and it was hard for me to see, so I grabbed the glass last, and it gave me the arrows I wanted. So I was like, yes. And as soon as I set it down, you can see it moved the arrows to a really weird spot. So anyway, the struggles. So here I'm just throwing out some enrichments for them, since I am going to be hitting play quite often. You can see some stuff I skipped. That's because it's going to be deleted. It didn't work, so I took that out. But that was when I was realizing I was having some struggles, because I take that little small piece that's over there that goes down by the water and put it in the main side to test it. It didn't work. They couldn't walk on it because they're too chubby, I guess. They're too big, their hitbox. They need the 4x4. Probably they need 3 is really all they need. But the other problem with that was I wanted to enclose it a little bit, or give them a kind of a barrier so they're not falling off. But those posts, they're just not skinny enough, I guess. I mean, they look skinny enough to me. And I do need to add some trash cans. Guests are starting to throw stuff on the ground. And right here, I was like, ugh. And I was trying to decide, do I want to bring the barrier out? What do I want to do here? So I end up just deleting the middle one. I slide them to see what that looks like and how I can fill that in. Maybe I don't. Yeah, I just go straight for the middle one, but it's not going to line up, obviously, because I'm not in the right grid. I'm using the grid for the piece on the right, and these are in different grids. So I just go into the grid for the one on the left, and then I'm going to copy that one, set it down, and then highlight it, hit the split button, hit X, and I'm going to slide that and adjust it to where it's just a little more thick in the middle, I guess, but it gives me 3 windows, so 2 big ones and 1 kind of smaller one. And right here I use regular glass. However, I'll probably go back and change it to the one-way glass. I forget that has been added, but I don't have guests really walking over here too much right now. But since I did put the hammock, I should be nice to my sun bears and put in the one-way glass so that if guests come over here, they're not too bothered by the guests standing there, that it doesn't bother them. So anyway, you can use whichever glass you like if you're following along. Anyway, so I'm going to slide those pieces around, same idea. There we go. I'm going to make sure that they're not overlapping. That drives me crazy. I don't like my glass overlapping. Really don't even like putting them edge to edge because you can still see it. It doesn't like snap and meld together like a wall. I wish it did. That'd be cool. Just have some straight up glass walls. I know they have a really big pane as well in there. They have a huge one. And then we're gonna add in the barrier to this side. So I noticed it kind of goes into my platform here. At one point, what I have here was working for them to get over there, but I have to change it one more time. I saved the game, reloaded, and I couldn't get it to work again, which is really frustrating. I don't understand why that happens. So I do end up changing how they get out of this little tunnel and go over to the water area. So that's why it's not part of the video yet. And then I'm going to, once I get this down, I end up changing that one to a non-see-through, a full wall. There we go. I'm gonna scoot this over. So I'm gonna split out these 3 guys and then scoot it over so that it's not in the middle of that board right there. And maybe it's these pieces that took away their ability to get on and off of here. I don't know. It really shouldn't have, because they can walk through the whole thing once I put the sides and the top on it. It was really frustrating, so I don't know what happened. Maybe it just needed the nudge. I know there's a glitch in the game with certain climbing in a couple of my zoos that I have to reset their climbing rigs every time I load it. I'm not sure why that's a thing, but it is. So if you ever do load into a zoo and they're complaining, go find that rig and move it and put it right back. It should re-trigger or recalculate and be all good. Alrighty, so I'm putting in a closed one here. Originally, I did kind of think about how I could do glass right here, but the concrete pieces that are freeform do not have the same color tone as these. I've tried color coding it in the past, and I never can quite get it. They're not exactly the same. The non-grid concrete pieces are more like a pink hue instead of gray. So I'm just getting this lined up, and then I'm going to stack one on top of it, and then I'm going to sink all that into the ground so that it seals off at the top but doesn't affect the bear's ability to walk through here. So I just wait until it just barely comes down. I probably should have gone up to the bottom of the glass instead of stopping there, but that's okay. So I did put the glass into this piece, and then I realized I really just don't like the view right there. It's not a good view, so I get rid of that altogether and just put in the full wall so guests can't see in there. You're not going to see much as you walk by right there, because if they're traveling right here, they'll be either in the tube or they're going to be going into the water, so you probably won't be able to see them very well. So I do get this one set down, and I change this up a little bit after that. So we're gonna get this one down, and then I'm looking to see what it looks like. Oh, I did leave that first glass one. It's the other one I took it out. I had it backwards. You can do all full walls because it just doesn't make sense to look in there. Maybe you'll see them, but anyways, I tried a number of different things right here. I didn't like any of it, so I just went with this basic piece here and then moved it along the edge of the what do you call that, man? The barrier. So you can see I'm thinking about different ideas here. Do I like this? Do I like that? What about this piece? We'll go back to it. So I decide this is the piece to use, and the first one doesn't quite get into the barrier, but that's okay. I decided not to worry about it. I didn't add any extra gloss anyway. And then we're just gonna speed through this because it's a lot of fine-tuning with the advanced move. And right there, instead of readjusting all of these and going with my need for symmetry, I just covered it up, the in-game barrier. I could have another way around this is take the water out and move those posts by highlighting the post or adding a post so that I can move them. But these are curved, and I really just didn't do that. So I just went with having it just be a little bit different. So I did take the water out, and I'm going to add in. I felt like when I was checking their needs, I felt like they just didn't have enough space. So if they had a baby, they don't need this much water. They don't have a requirement for water at all. So I decided I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna flatten the surface just along the back side here. But I left the barrier as kind of a deterrent so that it wouldn't get too crazy on me. That way it would keep the terrain in there. Depending on the height, it will kind of block your terrain adjustments. And that's exactly what I wanted, was just a nice thin piece in the background. And then this is where I decided, well, I'm going to take that back wall out. Originally I was like, ooh, can I fit water back there? I don't know why. It wouldn't be useful. It's just me being silly. So I end up just going into here and editing that out and just taking the back barrier off. And then I'm gonna throw in some rocks in there. So I'm kind of looking at it, trying to decide right here what I want to do. And bye-bye. So we'll just right click all those out. And I'm gonna leave, of course, I can't take away the ones on the end because that is holding water in. And I just filled this in on that side. I just let the game decide how those pieces should fit. I just kind of rolled them around with the cursor and let them set themselves down. With these, I did actually kind of move with Z more so. I just spun them and just tried to keep them as straight up as possible. And then on these, I advanced moved them, flipped them, turned them. Later on, I do find a few little holes, so I just, like right there, I think there's a little hole, so I go ahead and cover those up. When I'm doing the plant work, I move some of those around to make sure there's no little peeky holes through the rocks. And now I'm headed back to this over here to find out if I can get it working. I do, but I just had such a struggle. I decided to work on a couple other things. This was not behaving the way I wanted it to, so I'm going to go ahead and just put this all the way down on the ground, and I'm going to hope that they can get on it. Sometimes when you do this, they can't. It's really frustrating. And then I tried so many different ideas. I made little stairs. I did several different climbing things. And finally I said, let me just get a log and let's put it over there and see what happens. So, success. They can get over there with one little log. Everything else I built for them, no, they could not get over there. So then I realized I need a little bit more climbing for them. So I'm going to put in this tree here. It's a climbable tree. And then I grab, I think, a Himalayan tree and throw a couple of those in. I thought about putting them along the back side, and then I remembered the whole reason I put that soil back there was so that the bears had a little bit more and could walk on it, especially if they had a baby. And so I decided to use this little purple plant. I can't remember what it's called. I love it though. And just stick it all throughout the rocks, going upright, sitting the correct way, just peeking out of cracks, just to give it a little color on that backside. So we are in franchise mode, and this is a tropical zoo, and it started raining. Yay for rain. So I did have it on run mode so I could earn money. And then I felt bad for the bears, and I felt like they needed a little bit more of a hard shelter. I felt like it wasn't quite enough. So I'm going to go ahead and give them a little bit more. And then I'm going to close this off too. So when they're walking through here, when they don't fall off or jump off, because technically they could. And then I'm going to go ahead and cover that up. So I'm just speeding up, copying these items. And for some reason, as a pair, it gives me the arrows I needed. So I'm shifting those around, and then I'm going to duplicate this whole thing. And you'll notice I skipped that one little section where it's got the 3. That is for my staff to be able to walk across. When I made the other log like that, the bears couldn't use it. I don't understand, but whatever. The game just did not like my ideas. So I kept this as 2 separate beams by themselves, away from each other, moved them a little bit, and then I added some rope, and I just used the snap to get those on there, and then I cut out putting some of the rope on, just because I had to go in the ground to get it to snap. I guess I could have pushed X on the beam and then changed it to a rope. It should put that right where I want it. But oh well. Anyways, so putting in some support to make it look like those aren't just rickety little things. Adding in a thicker one on the bottom, just so it goes all the way into the ground. And then we're gonna add in a little bit more rocks. So my third idea was to give them another way to get across. And I was gonna do just like a rock path. And then I did away with that idea. But I did leave the rocks right there. So here's our happy sun bear. Ruby thinks it's funny. Thank you so much for watching this video today. I hope you liked it. Thank you to my many subscribers. I'm so excited that I've hit 109. That's exciting for me, so thank you. And if you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing if you like my content. And may the RNG odds be ever in your favor.